The instant you turned your back, their inner world finally grasped the gap between losing a human and losing a myth. That is the part they bury in silence. They act untouched. They act like nothing cuts deep, but somewhere inside your closing strike landed like a blow they never braced for. Picture a chessboard where one side keeps boasting, playing smart, puffing out its chest, until the silent opponent, the one they counted as weak, makes a single flawless move that finishes the entire match in one breath. That is exactly what you accomplished. Smooth, steady, no theatrics, no wreckage. And that is precisely why it lives inside their head rent-free. Drama fades fast. Quiet force does not. And here is something real. Even entry-level psychology professors will tell you the brain recalls the person who proved them wrong far longer than the person who ever adored them. So this is not about love or regret. This is about the bruise to their pride. You did not just walk away. You walked away with your dignity fully intact. You exited without allowing them to pull you into petty games. You left once you saw the entire picture, once you understood the chess match, and once you stepped out like someone who will never be a pawn again. That is the kind of departure that brands itself into memory. And thank you, Chosen One, for standing with this movement. We are all in this together, spreading the light, keeping the mission breathing. Thank you for being part of this force. Now, returning to what truly matters. Your finishing move was not loud, but it was permanent. It did more than close the door. It revealed the frame, the hinges, and the very reason the structure fell apart in the first place. You became the scene their mind replays when the night grows still, when they are staring at the ceiling, pretending they came out on top while their own thoughts keep dragging the truth back into view. They were hoping for a reaction, for cracks, for begging, for collapse. Instead, you held your peace. You stayed clear. That stillness is the slice that cuts them the deepest. Your presence once steadied their chaos. Your absence now exposes every fracture they tried to conceal. They never imagined losing you would feel like losing a mirror that reflected every flaw they needed to address. They never expected the quiet to be this deafening, but quiet strikes harder when it comes from someone who genuinely mattered. When you stepped aside, you did not merely exit their world. You reclaimed your energy, your care, your devotion, your loyalty, all the things they assumed would always be waiting in line for them. They treated you like a leftover, and life handed them the full tab. Now, they are left holding memories they cannot erase because you were not just another face, you were the pivot point. Every tender moment they shared with you became a reminder of how terribly they botched things. Every painful moment they stirred up became proof of how much grace you offered. That is the real checkmate. The moment someone understands they did not just lose you. They lost the version of themselves that only existed because you poured calm into their existence. They lost the steadiness they swore they did not need. They lost the single person who decoded them without a manual. That kind of absence does not soften. It sticks. It lingers. It trails them like a shadow they cannot outpace. And here is the fact they keep choking on. You were never supposed to come out ahead. You were never supposed to rise. You were never supposed to remain composed while their entire scheme crumbled. But you did. You departed like someone who always understood their worth. That is the kind of play that rewrites a person's story, whether they accept it or not. Tonight, you're going to grasp exactly why they cannot release you, why your exit echoes inside their thoughts, why your name lands in their mind like a notification they cannot dismiss, and why the universe tends to shield those who move with truth, calm, and silent strength. Because some goodbyes are not just endings, they are lessons. And you, Chosen One, became the lesson they will never escape. And Chosen One, thank you for staying locked in. Before we move forward, give yourself a moment to settle in. Because what comes next is going to lay out exactly why your final move still echoes in their mind, like a ringtone they cannot silence. Stay with me, and let this settle in. Because the next chapter lands even harder than the silence you left behind. And missing it would be like walking away right before the closing twist. And now, Chosen One, let us move forward step by step. If your spirit is awake, you will feel the tug to remain until the very last word. Let us dive in. Number 1. The day their mastermind act came down like a flimsy stage prop. Nothing humiliates a faker faster than getting outplayed by the very person they assumed was easy to steer. That single fact lands on them like a fist to the core of their pride. Because deep within they constructed their entire confidence on the belief that they were always one step ahead of you. They swore they were the sharper one, the calmer one, the one who always understood more than you. But that illusion only held up as long as you played along. The instant you stopped feeding their fantasy, the entire act collapsed in seconds. They walked into your life acting like some grand strategist, convinced they could read you like a children's book while they hid behind their little schemes. They figured you were simple, predictable, easy to steer. They figured you would respond on cue the same way every single time. They assumed their excuses would keep working forever. Their mind games would go unnoticed, and their rehearsed lines would keep you stuck in place. They truly believed you missed everything. But Chosen One, the truth is, you saw it all. And here is the gut punch that keeps them up at night. You were observing long before they caught on. You watched the pattern. You watched the switches. You watched how their stories never lined up. You watched how their energy shifted depending on what they wanted. You watched who they turned into when they thought you were not paying attention. You were not asleep. You were studying quietly, patiently, sharply. Then came the day everything pivoted. You did not announce anything. You did not argue. You did not send a long message explaining your awakening. You did not break down or beg or give them a show. You simply began to understand the truth. And once that truth clicked in your mind, it transformed the entire way you moved. That was the moment their illusion cracked. When you stopped reacting to their bait, they panicked. When you stopped falling into their emotional traps, they felt exposed. When you stopped granting them access to your peace, their tricks suddenly felt useless. And when you finally walked away calm, controlled, and unbothered, that was the moment they realized every move they made was predictable, while every move you made was intentional. Picture a magician repeating the same tired trick over and over, convinced the audience is clueless, until one person in the front row cracks the secret. That is what you did. You caught the sleight of hand, you caught the misdirection, you caught the ego beneath the mask. And you did not clap. You simply stood up and walked out. That is why they are haunted. They were not counting on you to grow, to wise up, to get sharper. They were not counting on you to stay composed while their entire act unraveled. They were not counting on you to play the long game with wisdom rather than emotion. And now their mind keeps replaying the instant they realized you were far more aware than they ever gave you credit for. Here is another truth they choke on. People who rely on manipulation always assume they are the smartest one in the room. They assume everyone else is softer, weaker, slower, easier to fool. They cannot imagine that the person they are trying to outplay is actually studying them with crystal clarity. That is why your quiet cuts deeper than any confrontation ever could. Quiet from someone who finally sees the game is the loudest punishment. And Chosen One, let us be honest, they thought your kindness meant blindness. They mistook your patience for ignorance. They figured your loyalty meant you would never catch the small betrayals or the shifting behavior. They figured they could keep you in the dark forever. But all along, you were evolving. You were connecting dots. You were becoming someone they could no longer fool. What hurts them is not that you left. What hurts them is how you left. You walked away carrying your self-respect, your peace, your clarity, and your dignity. You walked away without breaking character. You walked away without stooping to their level. You walked away like someone who had already solved the puzzle. And you left them sitting in the middle of their own maze, trying to figure out how the person they underestimated ended up being the smartest one in the room. The human mind obsesses over anything that challenges its pride. And you challenge their pride in the worst possible way by showing them their hold over you was an illusion. They did not lose control. They never had it. They were performing for an audience that was never impressed. Now every time they think of you, they feel the sting of that realization. They feel the punch of losing to someone they figured would always be beneath them. They feel the humiliation of being read like a page when they believed they were unreadable. They feel the shock of seeing the quiet one walk away with more wisdom than the loud one ever carried. And here is what truly keeps them trapped inside their own head. They cannot explain how you did it. They do not understand how you saw through them. They do not understand how your instinct grew sharper than their manipulation. They do not understand why their tricks suddenly stopped working. It is like trying to solve a math problem with missing numbers. You became the equation they cannot complete, the riddle they cannot answer, the ending they never prepared for. Some nights they wonder, how long did you know? Some days they wonder, when did you figure me out? Some moments they wonder, what did they see that I did not hide properly? And the unsettling truth is this: you saw everything. You simply did not expose them. You let the universe expose them instead. You let their own behavior reveal who they were. You let their inconsistency destroy their credibility. And you let your quiet become the proof. The illusion they built was never strong. It only stood because they believed you would not question it. But once you questioned it, everything crumbled. A person who depends on deceit falls apart the moment they meet someone who sees truth clearly, and the moment you stepped into clarity, their entire identity took a hit. That is why your exit was not just an exit. It was an ego collapse. It was a mirror being held up. It was a truth they could not run from. They did not lose you. They lost the version of themselves they pretended to be. They lost the confidence they built off your silence. They lost the power they thought they held. They lost the illusion that kept them feeling superior. This is the real checkmate. Not loud, not messy, not dramatic, just devastatingly true. And this is exactly why they can never forget you. Because forgetting you would require them to forget the moment their whole image cracked. And that is something their mind refuses to release. You did not shatter the illusion. Your intelligence did. Your calmness did. Your quiet did. And chosen one, that is why the memory of you stays, because nothing haunts a pretender harder than the one who outsmarted them without ever needing to try. Number 2, the day you outgrew the person they leaned on for power. Nothing terrifies a manipulator more than watching the version of you they controlled vanish and the version they cannot reach rise in its place. That line lands on them like a brick to the chest because it forces them to face the one truth they have been dodging. The only reason they ever felt powerful was because you were still discovering your own. Every drop of control they thought they had was built on an outdated version of you, a version that was more forgiving, more patient, more willing to hand them the benefit of the doubt, a version that questioned itself instead of questioning their motives, a version that had not yet grasped the strength hiding inside its own quiet. But chosen one, growth does not schedule an appointment. Growth does not knock politely. Growth does not ask if anyone in the room is ready. It arrives, clears the dust off your vision, and quietly rewrites who you are. And the moment you stepped into that new version of yourself, everything they built their power on collapsed. People do not panic when you change. They panic when their access to the old you disappears. That is exactly what happened. They were not scared of losing you. They were scared of losing the version of you that lifted them, excused them, calmed them, believed them, and handed them endless chances. They were scared of losing the you that made them feel bigger. Imagine this. Someone builds a throne out of cardboard, places it on top of sand, and then brags about ruling the entire beach. That was them. Their whole sense of superiority rested on something unstable, temporary, and completely dependent on you staying the same. The moment you grew, the sand shifted, and the throne collapsed. There was no power. There was just you believing you had less. Another example. Imagine a person who depends on your silence to keep their lies standing. As long as you do not question anything, they feel untouchable. But once you begin asking the right questions, even inside your own mind, their entire ego begins to fracture. Your growth was not loud, it was internal. And internal growth is the quietest, yet most dangerous kind. Then one day, something inside you clicked. You stopped explaining yourself. You stopped accepting half-truths. You stopped being afraid of losing someone who was not afraid of losing you. That shift was not dramatic. It was not loud. It was simple, clean, final. And that is when they felt something they did not expect. Fear. The moment you stop shrinking to make others comfortable, they start choking on the space you were meant to take up. You did not just outgrow them. You outgrew the role they assigned you. You outgrew the place they trapped you in. You outgrew the small box they assumed you would stay inside forever. And now they are left staring at the empty space where the old you used to stand, wondering how the person they underestimated became the person they can no longer access. The haunting part. They cannot update their script quickly enough. They still speak to you in their mind as if you are the old version, the soft version, and then realize that version is gone. Every attempt to reach you now feels like trying to unlock a door with a key that no longer fits. The lock changed. You changed. Picture them standing there with their usual manipulation tactics, like tools in a broken toolbox. Nothing works, nothing fits, nothing lands. Their old tricks fall flat because you do not respond the same way anymore. Where you once hesitated, now you stand firm. Where you once doubted yourself, now you see everything clearly. Where you once reacted emotionally, now you move with intention. And here is the punch that stings them the most. You did not leave because you were weak. You left because you became strong. You walked away not because they pushed you out, but because you realized staying would force you to shrink again, and you refused to go backward. Growth does not reverse itself just to make someone else feel comfortable. You did not become too much, they just stayed too small. And that truth eats at them every single day because your evolution was never supposed to happen. In their mind, you were frozen in time, stuck in the same place emotionally, still unsure of your own power. They counted on your wounds. They counted on your doubts. They counted on your softness. They never counted on your healing. They never counted on your awareness. They never counted on your awakening. And when you outgrew the old version of yourself, you directly outgrew the version of you they held power over. Their entire ego depended on you staying exactly where they left you. But you did not stay. You evolved, you expanded, you rose. Now they are haunted by questions they will never admit out loud. How did they change so much? When did they figure everything out? Who are they now? Why can I not reach them anymore? Why does my power feel weaker around them? Because Chosen One, the version of you they handled so easily, no longer exists. They leaned on your innocence, your hope, your softness, your willingness to see the best in people. They leaned on your past. They leaned on your heart not being fully awake yet. They leaned on your boundaries still being under construction. But once your growth kicked in, the entire game changed. You now have clarity. You have boundaries. You have emotional intelligence. You can see patterns instantly. You can sense manipulation from miles away. Your instinct is sharper than their intentions. You are not the same, and that terrifies them. Here is the uncomfortable truth for your enemy. They did not lose you to another person. They lost you to your evolution, and evolution is something they cannot fight, cannot control, cannot outperform. Now, every memory they have of you feels outdated. Every version of you they try to picture feels inaccurate. Every way they used to influence you feels useless. They are haunted because the old version of you made them feel powerful, but the new version of you makes them feel exposed. You did not just leave their story. You rewrote your entire character arc. You upgraded in silence while they stood still. You broke every limit they thought would hold you down. You became the proof that they never had power at all. Imagine this closing metaphor. A snake sheds its skin. The old skin dries out and becomes useless while the snake moves forward stronger, cleaner, more dangerous. That is you. And they are stuck staring at the skin, confused why they cannot hold on to something that no longer belongs to you. They cannot forget you, Chosen One, because your growth was the ultimate checkmate. You outgrew their influence, you outgrew their expectations, you outgrew their control, you outgrew the version of you they needed to feel superior, and now they have to live with the truth. The only thing they ever had power over was a person who no longer exists. That is why their mind will not release you. That is why your memory stings. That is why they replay everything. That is why your presence still haunts their soul. You did not just evolve, you escaped. You surpassed, you rose. And the universe always remembers the moment someone becomes untouchable. Number 3, the day your quiet forced the truth straight out of their mouth. Nothing exposes a person faster than the calm stare of someone who finally sees the truth. You did not have to leak their secrets, Chosen One. You did not have to put screenshots on display or drag their name through the mud. You simply stopped entertaining the version of them they performed for you. And that alone tore through their mask like paper in the rain. They thought power came from hiding their flaws, but the real power came from you refusing to play along. Here is the part that hits their ego like a steel door to the face. You revealed their character without saying a single word. You did not out them. You did not expose them. You did not sabotage them. You simply held your boundaries, and the truth spilled out of them. Picture someone who always hides in the shadows, talking big behind the curtain. The second you pull the curtain slightly, not even fully, the light hits them, and they panic. That is what your growth did. You did not drag them into the light. They stepped into it trying to prove something and exposed themselves instead. Your silence became the spotlight. Your calm became the evidence. Your distance became the verdict. People fear the ones who know their truth, but choose not to weaponize it. And that is exactly why they are haunted. You could have ruined them. You could have humiliated them. You could have told everyone what you saw behind the scenes, but you did not. Your integrity became the loudest announcement of their character. They keep wondering, how much did you notice? They keep replaying. Did they see that moment? They keep stressing, what if others see me the way they did? And the truth is terrifying to them. You noticed everything. You saw the inconsistencies, the lies, the charm they used as camouflage, and you let them expose themselves through the way they reacted. When you stopped allowing disrespect, you did not fight them, you outgrew them. And growth is the one thing their ego cannot argue with. The reflection they saw in your calmness was the exact version of themselves they tried to hide. That is the ghost that follows them now. They will never escape it because you did not ruin their reputation. You let them ruin it in front of you. Number 4. The moment your composure sliced deeper than any scream ever could. A silent mind is the sharpest weapon. It slices through games before the other person even knows a battle started. They were waiting for chaos. They were counting on it. In fact, they thought you would crack, blow up, fold, melt down, or lose all sense of direction. That is the reaction manipulators count on, because emotional storms give them cover. But you did not storm. You did not shake. You did not break. You did not react at all. You moved with the kind of precision that makes the room colder. And that is when everything shifted. You were not emotional. You were strategic. Your decisions were not impulsive. They were exact. Instead of pouring your energy into arguments, you redirected it into clarity. Instead of shouting, you observed. Instead of trying to prove anything, you simply made your move. And nothing rattles a manipulator harder than realizing the person they plan to provoke is operating with a level of calm they cannot influence. People can fight your anger. They cannot fight your clarity. Imagine this. They are standing there with matches, gasoline, and a smile, fully prepared to burn everything down and blame you for the smoke. But you show up with water, logic, composure, and a plan. Their whole strategy collapses. They cannot twist your words because you did not waste any. They cannot twist your emotions because you did not hand them any. They cannot rewrite the narrative because you did not give them a single messy moment to work with. The precision terrified them. You became the one controlling the tempo. You became the one calling the shots. You became the one they could not read, could not push, could not destabilize. They kept waiting for a meltdown that never came. And the absence of chaos exposed their own instability. Silence backed by self-control is a checkmate no one sees coming. Now, they are haunted not by what you said, but by everything you did not say. Not by what you did, but by how smoothly you executed every move. Not by your emotions, but by your lack of reaction. They realize now that you were not playing the game. You were studying it. You were watching patterns, tracking shifts, calculating outcomes. They thought they were the player and you were the piece until the board flipped and you walked away with every advantage. You did not lose control, you took control. And that is the moment they started losing silently, completely, and without any way to fight back. Number 5. The day your loyalty finally dried up. Nothing hits harder than realizing the person who always showed up is no longer showing up. They swore you would never leave. They studied your patience like a blueprint and convinced themselves you were permanent, predictable, forever available. They mistook your loyalty for dependency. They read your kindness as captivity. They believed your consistency meant surrender. And because they assumed you would always stay, they acted like they had endless chances. But chosen one, loyalty is not infinite. It is earned. And once someone burns through every bridge you quietly rebuilt, they eventually reach the final one, the one you never rebuild again. You did not scream, did not curse, did not slam the door, you simply stepped back. And for the first time, they felt what true loss actually is. Silent, final, irreversible. That is the moment their world shifted because they never believed you had a limit. They thought your care was automatic, like a light switch they could flip whenever they wanted attention. They did not expect the switch to stop working. People only respect your loyalty when they realize it comes with consequences. Imagine them walking around like a king in a kingdom they never earned. They thought the throne was theirs because you kept choosing them. But loyalty is not royalty. It is responsibility. And responsibility ends the second someone decides to abuse it. You did not leave to hurt them. You left because you finally saw the truth. Staying was hurting you, and that is the part haunting them. You did not walk away emotionally shattered. You walked away with clarity. You walked away knowing exactly what you deserved. You walked away without hesitation, without bitterness, without dragging the past behind you. That calm exit hurt more than any dramatic breakup ever could. Now they are stuck with questions they never saw coming. Why did they not fight for me? Why did they not break down this time? How did their loyalty disappear just like that? Were they done with me for longer than I realized? And the answer burns every time. Your loyalty ended the moment you recognized your value. Once a loyal heart hits its limit, it does not bend. It breaks the cycle. They cannot appeal that decision. They cannot negotiate with it. Loyalty, once betrayed, does not respawn. It does not reboot. It does not regenerate just because they suddenly feel the emptiness they created. You did not punish them. You educated them. You taught them the one lesson their ego never wanted to learn. Loyalty has a limit, and once crossed, all that is left is the echo of everything they took for granted. Number 6. The day they discovered the rest of the world was just static. Losing someone who understands you is worse than losing someone who loves you, because love can be replaced, but understanding cannot. They thought you were just another person passing through their life. They had no idea you were the only one who actually decoded them. You did not just listen to their words, you heard what they were not saying. You did not just see their behavior, you recognized the emotions hiding underneath it. You did not just care for them, you translated them. And that is a skill most people do not have. When you were in their life, they felt grounded. You calmed storms they did not even know how to name. You caught their shifts in energy before they even processed them. You understood their silence like a language. You understood their fears without needing an explanation. You understood their flaws without weaponizing them. You understood their chaos without judging them. Understanding is a rare currency, and they only realized its value the moment you stopped spending it on them. Now look at them surrounded by people yet starving emotionally. Everyone talks but no one communicates. Everyone shows interest but no one truly connects. Everyone wants attention but no one wants depth. They are living in a crowd but dying in isolation because the one person who could actually reach them is gone. Imagine them walking into a room full of smiling faces and still feeling empty. Imagine them trying to explain themselves to new people and feeling misunderstood within seconds. Imagine them searching for comfort in conversations that feel surface level, recycled, predictable. That is their reality now. They are not haunted by loneliness. They are haunted by the difference you made. And here comes the gut punch. They never replaced you. They replaced your presence with noise, and noise does not heal, noise does not understand, noise does not soothe, noise does not translate the emotional storms inside them. They are not missing love. They are missing recognition. They are not missing your face. They are missing your mind. They are not missing your attention. They are missing your understanding. Connections are easy. Being understood is rare. You were the rare one, the one who made them feel seen, not judged. The one who knew how to sit with their darkness without fear, the one who did not run when their walls cracked. And when you left, the peace you brought left with you. Everyone they meet now feels shallow compared to the depth you carried effortlessly. That is why every new connection falls flat. That is why every conversation feels empty. That is why every attempt at closeness feels forced. They are not grieving you. They are grieving the version of themselves that only existed with you. And that chosen one is a wound they will never fully heal from. Number 7, the day you proved that even the word forever has a final page. Nothing snaps a person back to reality like losing the one they assumed would always stay. They counted on your familiarity like it was a spell, a safety net, a guarantee, a comfort zone they thought you would never outgrow. They believed the history you shared was enough to keep you anchored, even if they stopped putting in effort. They assumed routine meant loyalty, and loyalty meant you would never walk away. In their mind, time equaled possession. Your presence equaled permanence. But chosen one, you shattered that illusion with one simple truth. Familiarity is not ownership. History is not respect. Comfort is not commitment. You woke up from the trance they kept you in. You broke the pattern they were leaning on. You stopped showing up just because you always did. You stopped accepting crumbs just because you were used to them. You stopped confusing consistency with connection. And once you snapped that cycle, the whole story collapsed. The moment you stopped tolerating the predictable, they realized how replaceable they truly were. Imagine them walking the same worn-out path, expecting to find you at the end of it, because you were always there. And then one day they reach the destination, and it is empty. The comfort they built around you evaporated, because you finally understood that staying in the same place is not loyalty, it is stagnation. Your evolution became their wake-up call. You did not drift away. You upgraded. You evolved past the version of yourself that tolerated the repetitive, the lazy, the unchanging. You stopped living on autopilot. You stopped letting routine hypnotize you into accepting less than you deserved. And now they are haunted by the truth that nothing, not time, not habit, not routine, could keep you locked in place. They thought the chapter would never end. They thought shared memories were enough to override your self-worth. They thought your heart was stuck in yesterday, but you showed them something brutal. Even the most familiar face can disappear overnight when respect disappears first. Now, every time they think of you, it hits them like a cold wind. If someone as loyal, consistent, and dependable as you can walk away, then nothing in their life is guaranteed. Your absence broke their illusion of permanence. Your exit proved comfort is not control, and your growth showed them the spell was never real. They were just lucky you stayed as long as you did. Number 8, the day the universe itself shut the door in their face. Losing access to someone is one thing. Losing access because life will not let you near them anymore is a whole different kind of punishment. They love to pretend you cut them off, that you were being dramatic or emotional, but you and I both know the truth. You did not end this. Evolution did. Life stepped in like a cosmic bouncer and said, "Yeah, you are not allowed in this section anymore." And nothing bruises their ego more than realizing the separation was not personal. It was universal. Your shift was not messy. It was not chaotic. It was not a fight. Your life simply rose to a level their frequency could not reach. You did not slam the door. It closed on its own when your energy got too high, your peace got too protected, and your clarity became too sharp for their chaos to survive around you. Sometimes you do not outgrow people on purpose. You just grow and they stop fitting. Imagine 2 radio stations. One keeps evolving, upgrading, becoming clearer and sharper. The other stays fuzzy, static-filled, repeating the same old noise. You did not block them. You moved to a different wavelength they literally cannot tune into. Every attempt they make to reach you now feels like grabbing smoke. Empty, hopeless, pointless. Life did what you were too loyal, too patient, too compassionate to do yourself. It removed what could not go where you are headed. It filtered out anything that could not handle your next level. It protected your peace the moment you realized peace is more important than history. Now they are sitting there, feeling the distance like a cold draft they cannot escape. They can sense your absence in the air, not because you are being petty, but because they no longer have permission to access someone operating on a higher plane. When the universe blocks someone from your life, it is never a mistake. It is a correction, and that is what haunts them. The separation was not a breakup. It was not an argument. It was not a decision you made in anger. It was life stepping in and saying, this connection has expired. They were not cut off. They were phased out. They were not rejected. They were outgrown. And nothing stings them deeper than knowing the universe decided you were too evolved for them. Number 9. The day your grace turned into their longest punishment. Nothing tortures a guilty soul more than realizing the person they mistreated handled them with more honor than they ever earned. You treated them better than they deserved. And that truth clings to them like smoke they cannot wash off. You held your composure while they acted reckless. You stayed grounded while they moved selfishly. You stayed real while they played roles. You kept your standards high, even when their behavior sank lower than you expected. And that contrast, that gap between who you were and who they pretended to be, is the scar they cannot get rid of. They were not prepared for someone who could see their flaws and still choose grace. They were not ready for someone who could recognize manipulation and still respond with maturity. You did not explode, expose, or retaliate. You outclassed, you outgrew, you out-elevated. And nothing hurts a manipulator more than being handled with respect they did not earn because it highlights their lack of character in the most brutal way possible. Your kindness was not weakness. It was discipline. And they know it now. Imagine them replaying the moments where they acted careless, selfish, or dismissive, while you remained steady. Every memory is a reminder of how wildly mismatched your intentions were with theirs. They brought chaos. You brought calm. They brought excuses. You brought effort. They brought ego. You brought heart. That imbalance is what is haunting them now. And here is the gut punch they refuse to admit. They will never meet another person who handles them the way you did. Not because you were perfect, but because you were genuine. You did not treat them based on who they were. You treated them based on who you were. That is what they lost. That is what they cannot replace. That is what every new connection fails to deliver. They thought they could upgrade from you, but instead, every new person feels like a downgrade in emotional quality. You disappeared, but your standards stayed behind, and now they are trapped trying to meet a benchmark they cannot reach. They are not just missing you, they are missing how they felt when you were the one giving them grace. They are missing the version of themselves they only ever experienced in your presence. That is the real punishment. Not your silence, not your distance, but the brutal truth that you treated them better than their character could handle. And they will never experience that level of care again. Number 10. The day you broke the loop they thought was bulletproof. A manipulator's worst nightmare is not being confronted. It is being ignored by the person who finally figured out the pattern. They lived inside cycles like it was their personal playground. Lie, apologize, manipulate, repeat. It was the same choreography every time. Like a tired sitcom rerun they assumed you would keep watching because it was familiar. They leaned on that repetition. It kept them in charge. It kept you predictable. It kept them feeling powerful. But chosen one, you did the one thing they never planned for. You stepped out of the loop, not temporarily, not to teach them a lesson, not to wait for them to change. You ended the entire cycle. Breaking a pattern is easy. Refusing to go back to it, that is the revolution. You did not slam the door, you did not rage, you did not demand closure. You simply stopped participating. And that is what broke them. Manipulators do not know how to function without a reaction. Their whole identity depends on pulling strings, poking wounds, triggering responses, and feeding off the chaos they create. Without you responding, they had nothing to control, nothing to twist, nothing to manipulate. Picture a puppeteer lifting their hands only to realize the strings are cut. Picture a fisherman throwing bait, but the ocean is empty. Picture someone performing a magic trick for an audience that walked out. That is what your silence felt like. You did not pause the game, you destroyed it. They keep waiting for the old rhythm, the argument, the reconciliation, the emotional reset. But all they hear now is silence. And silence is a brutal teacher. It forces them to sit with themselves. It forces them to feel the emptiness that their manipulation once masked. It forces them to face the truth. The cycle only worked because you allowed it. And now that you have evolved past the pattern, they are stuck replaying questions they cannot answer. Why did they not react this time? What changed in them? How did they outgrow something I counted on? Why does their silence hurt more than any argument? Because, Chosen One, you did not just leave. You leveled up. You reached a version of yourself that no longer fits inside their old script. When growth breaks the cycle, the past cannot follow you. Now they are trapped in the ruins of a system that depended on your participation. They miss the version of you who tried. They miss the version of you who forgave. They miss the version of you who fought for clarity. But that version evolved. That version refuses to shrink. That version refuses to repeat history. Nothing haunts a manipulator more than realizing the cycle they worshipped ended without warning, ended without drama, ended without permission, and ended because you finally woke up. Number 11, the moment you checkmated the entire board without lifting a single finger. The loud ones play the game. The quiet ones master the board. They thought they were running things. They truly believed their little tricks, half-truths, and emotional bait were enough to keep you tangled. They saw themselves as the player, and you as the piece they could move whenever it suited them. But the whole time they were busy pushing pawns, you were watching everything, the patterns, the openings, the weaknesses, the ego behind every move. You did not win because you were aggressive. You won because you finally understood the entire structure of the game. Imagine someone bragging about their strategy while literally playing checkers on a chessboard. That is them. Meanwhile, you were 10 steps ahead, studying the board quietly, predicting their next move before they even thought of it. You were not reacting, you were calculating. You were not confused, you were confirming. Every silence, every pause, every time you refused to argue was a move. And they did not see it because they were too focused on trying to trigger you. The moment you stop reacting, you start winning. Your calm was the checkmate. Your clarity was the weapon. Your silence was the victory move they never saw coming. They thought you were stepping back because you were overwhelmed. In reality, you were stepping back because your view of the board got clearer. You saw how predictable they were. You saw how repetitive their tactics had become. You saw how their ego made them sloppy, loud, and reckless. You saw the whole game for what it was, and once you understood it, you could not unsee it. And when you walked away without a speech, without exposing them, without announcing your exit, that was the final brutal checkmate. Quiet, absolute, irreversible. The kind of ending that leaves no rematch. Now they are stuck replaying everything, wondering when did they figure me out? How long were they watching? Why did I not see it happening? Did they plan this the whole time? And the answer burns every time. You won because you became the strategist. They lost because they were too busy playing pretend. That is why they cannot forget you. The game ended before they realized you had already claimed the entire board. And listen, Chosen One, now you see exactly why your silence, your growth, and your final move left a mark they cannot erase. You did not just walk away, you transformed. And that transformation